Mackenzie Johnston with Tri-State Livestock News, bringing you discussions concerning fair cattle markets. Today, Brett Crosby of Cowley, Wyoming, and I talk about the Cattle Market Transparency Act of 2021 that was introduced by Senator Fisher of Nebraska and Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon. Brett Crosby is a United States Cattlemen's Association board member, and he reviewed and provided input on the bill through USDA. For people that don't know, what does this bill set out to accomplish? What's a basic overview of this bill?
It establishes a regional mandatory minimum threshold of negotiated cash. And that mandatory minimum is going to be set by the Secretary of Agriculture in consultation with the chief economist. And the methodology will be published and subject to public comment. And the thresholds will be reviewed every year because, what we're looking for is just a statistically significant sample from every region. That's how we get price discovery. And to be statistically significant is a function of a lot of things. It's a function of the number of animals traded. It's a function of the number of transactions. It's a function of price volatility. So because those things change regularly, this will be reviewed regularly. And then it will be implemented within 2 years and reviewed in 5. So we'll have 3 years of implementation to review. I would like to see it implemented in 1 year, but the USDA feedback on the bill was we need more time than that.
And so Senator Fisher has introduced this bill in the Senate, correct?
Yeah, Senators Fisher and Wyden.
Is there going to be very much pushback in the Senate? Do you think this will make its way through?
I've been talking about that with people. Republicans generally support ranchers, and I think that because most of the Republicans are in the Midwest, Southeast, and Rocky Mountain states where there are ranchers, I think we will have a Republican votes. On the Democrat side, this is right up their alley. This is the classic David and Goliath story where it's the little guys against the big corporates. So I have a hard time believing, they can justify anything. We've learned that. Anyone on either side of the aisle can, but this seems to be a bill that has all the ingredients necessary for bipartisanship support.
There's been a little bit of pushback in the industry, and some folks have said that this bill won't do enough to restore competition in our cattle markets and increase negotiated cash trade. What is your response to this kind of statement?
Well, the goal here is price discovery. It's not to increase one type of trade over another. It's price discovery, which then gives people who negotiate cash the information they need to price their animals accordingly. And I don't personally believe that negotiated cash by itself will necessarily brings higher prices. As a matter of fact, the data show that it doesn't, because formula trade is based in part off of carcass quality. And so when we trade, that's why formula trade has increased so significantly, because people with high quality carcasses, that's high quality grade in the north and high yield grade in the south, have moved toward formula pricing. But as they've done that, we've lost price discovery in the process because we don't know what cattle are worth in a timely manner to be able to have enough information to negotiate cash. And that's important. So there is a misconception of the intent. for those who believe we need more cash because it'll raise prices, no, this isn't the bill for them. But increasing the amount of cash will increase price discovery, which with adequate price discovery will give feedlots more leverage to price their cattle. And so it's through kind of a backdoor process, it can increase the prices that negotiated cash sellers receive.
There have been a few individuals come forward and say that the USDA has had the opportunity to enforce the issues that are covered in Senator Fisher's bill. However, they have not done so. So why will they do so now with this bill?
I don't believe it has been explicit that it's the USDA's responsibility to maintain a competitive marketplace. It may have been implicit, but this makes it explicit, and by making it explicit, they will be held accountable.
Have other industry groups come forward supporting this bill, or what have we seen so far with that? Is the industry rallying around this bill?
That's a good question. We don't know exactly what the NCBA is going to do. They came out with a statement yesterday saying that they support the goals, but how to achieve those goals is hotly contested, and that they're going to rely on a grassroots effort to determine how to go forward, which to me means they haven't gotten enough feedback from their most valued members to have a response. Remember, the NCBA represents the beef industry as a whole, and they have the biggest hammer in Washington, so I believe it's important that we support them to the extent that they, support the beef industry. The U.S. Cattlemen is more focused on cattle producers, and specifically cow-calf, stockers, small feedlots. And so they have a more narrow focus toward their membership. And so the U.S. Cattlemen obviously can support this because this helps cattlemen. The NCBA is in a more difficult spot because they have to look at the beef industry as a whole, and they have to recognize that the large feedlots and the packers are part of their membership. So this is really a contentious subject within the NCBA, which puts the NCBA leadership in a very difficult position. RCAF will oppose everything that isn't 50-14 because that's been their goal all along, and they're not gonna back off of it. I don't believe it doesn't sound like I'm not going to speak for them, but I think that in talking with members of the NCBA and members of the NCBA on key committees, this is a good opportunity for the U.S. Cattlemen and the NCBA to come together and support this bill. And remember, every bill can be amended as it goes through the process, and there may, amendments may be necessary. Compromise is always part of the process. But I think the bill in itself is a very good compromise. So I don't anticipate a lot of negotiating within the industry on amendments. There are three other really important points that this bill brings out. First of all, transparency through a marketing contract library, which means that all of the contracts between packers and producers are going to be publicly available. Obviously, between whom the parties will remain confidential, but we'll see what premiums and discounts are being offered on the grid, how base prices are being negotiated or in the formulas, etc. And that's huge because we see what's happening that we haven't seen before. We'll see how many cattle are exclusively committed. We'll see what kinds of preferred customer premiums are given. And that's a big deal. The other big deal is that it defines cash as the number of cattle scheduled to be delivered for slaughter within 14 days. And we've been pushing for 14 days. Everybody's pushing for 14. RCAF, USDA, the small guys in the NCBA have been pushing for 14 days. Anything beyond 14 days is considered a forward contract and not included in the cash price. So packers can't price cattle out 30 days and count it as a cash negotiation. In the last week of those 30 days, they have all of their supply procured, and they've got captive supply and can use that to affect the cash market.
Are there any other points you want to highlight from this bill?
Yeah, the other thing is and this has been huge, especially in the South. The USDA cannot use confidentiality as a justification for not reporting. And we've seen a lot of things that aren't reported, and the USDA cites confidentiality. Well, that goes away. And that's a big, big deal because, for example, and this is a rule that was put into the LMR. If let's see, I can't remember what the percentages were. If they kill any more than 70% of the cattle that week, or 30% of the cattle in a 1 month period, or vice versa, I can't remember what it was, then their report wouldn't be made public. Well, that takes a lot of data away from us.
Yeah.
Especially in Texas, where we have huge feedlots, and they can hide their transactions behind confidentiality.
Is there any other pushback on this bill that you'd like to mention? Anything else you want to talk about concerning the bill overall?
The only other thing that I think is important for people to recognize is now we have a mandatory negotiated cash trade that's based on numbers, on data. It is based on statistical analysis that ensures that we have enough transactions and numbers. And while the 3014, 5014 proposals have been good, this proposal has a solid foundation behind economics and statistics. And so that gives us the inertia and foundation that we need to move this bill forward.
If this bill doesn't get moved forward, I know this is speculation, but if it doesn't get moved forward, what after this? As an industry, what do we go for after this if this doesn't go anywhere?
Well, cash traders have been required to report their transactions within 24, 48 hours, I don't know, but very timely. And formula trade has used that as a base price for years to then sell their cattle for an average of $40 a head more. If this doesn't get pushed forward, then I think you kill LMR altogether and tell the packers that and tell the big feedlots, the big corporates, that if they want a base price, then they're going to have to buy the information from the cash traders because it's not going to be public anymore. I don't think that this is necessarily the end of what we need to do, because I do think there's a substantial amount of captive supply within the packing sector through exclusive agreements, but this bill needs to happen so that we can see how much captive supply there is and then address that later. And I think that will go a long way toward the goal of the people who want to see higher cash prices and not just price discovery.